today I'm going to talk about something that was on my mind. It has to do with Emmett Till. Not too long ago, I mentioned that Emmett Till had a father, and his father's name was Lewis. And I talked about it a little bit on Instagram, and it really offended a lot of people. And I want to kind of dive into that and why Black fathers matter, and whether or not we as a community have been trained to forget about the importance of fathers. We're going to break this down for you. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started on drboycetv.com right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to co-sign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want to say hi to everybody as you come in. Shout out the city that you're from. Let me know what city you're from. I see Terrian DeVoe and Mo Shabazz and Shonda and Lynn Patterson and Torrey Turner. Good to see you. Rocco Killer says, there you go, Boyce. Bezo 64, good to see you. Torrey out of Dallas, Texas. What's up, Jay Wyndham? How are you? Happy Veterans Day. Oh, that's a Valentine's Day. Wait a minute, stop February. Shonda out of Illinois. Shout out the city. Let me know what city you're from. All right, so what's going on, everybody? Also, as we get started, please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, share, subscribe. You guys know that all the strong, independent Black media, the goal is to keep us away from each other. So the way for us to stay connected is for you to hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell. The notification bell will let you know when I go live. And I'll say what's up on Instagram. My Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. Be careful because there's a lot of fake accounts out there, and I don't want anybody to scam you or anything like that. So anyway, all right. So let me tell you all what was on my mind today. I just got back from D.C. I went to the reparations rally that was hosted by Tariq Nasheed and Jade Arundel, a.k.a. Linus Crown. Saw a lot of great people there. Kaba Kamene, Professor James Small. I saw Dr. Ma'at. Just so many amazing Black people. And there were some others there, and I may have forgotten a couple of names. But overall, it was really great because you really see a lot of momentum being gained on the things that Black folks really, not every Black folk wants. Every Black person wants these things, right? People are different, but there are millions of us. In fact, give me a yes or no in the chat if you believe that reparations are called for. Give me a yes in the chat if you agree that we are owed some sort of compensation for what we've gone through. Give me a yes in the chat if you agree that we deserve some sort of payment for all the wealth that was stolen and all the inequities that have occurred over time. Give me a yes or no. All right, yeah. So one guy who's a big champion of reparations, who's been fighting with reparations lawsuits for many decades, is Dr. Claude Anderson. I got a chance to sit with Dr. Anderson for many, many hours when I was in D.C., and we talked about reparations. We talked about this ongoing fight, and I assured him that all of us, will continue that fight, for forever. Like, it's not like he has to do it all by himself. And so we talked for a little while. So anyway, one of the things that was on my mind today, and I brought it up, and I noticed that there was a lot of triggered reactions. Was I for some reason, when my wife and I were on the way to the gym, I was thinking about Emmett Till, and I saw Whoopi Goldberg doing an interview about Emmett Till, and I think there's an Emmett Till movie coming out or something like that. And I have nothing against the movie. I'm not here to just piss anybody off any more than I have to. But I saw Whoopi talking, and they talked about Emmett Till's mother, and I said, "Wow, Emmett Till's mother is an amazing lady." And I remember I worked with the Emmett Till Foundation. I partnered with their family years ago. Some of you who've been following me for a long time can remember back when we took on the rapper Lil Wayne, and he had made a disrespectful lyric about Emmett Till. In one of his songs, he said something like, if I have sex with a girl, her vagina is going to look like Emmett Till's face. And I just thought that was so disrespectful. And so I partnered with Emmett Till's family to kind of challenge him a little bit. and also to challenge his corporate sponsor. As a finance guy, I know that the best way to win a battle is you have to declare economic war. So we went after Mountain Dew, which was sponsoring his world tour, and we got Mountain Dew to drop their sponsorship of this tour. And I don't regret it one bit. I don't feel bad about it. I'm not apologizing for nothing, because at the end of the day, if when you talk about Black people, either say something good or keep our names out your mouth. That's just how I felt. And I just can't apologize for that. So anyway, I love what the Emmett Till sacrifice did for the Black community in terms of inspiring us to go on and to have this civil rights movement and everything else. I'm inspired by the courage of his mother to do an open casket funeral so everybody can see what happened to him. Okay, so with that sort of out of the way and making sure we're clear on that, I then started saying, well, what about his daddy? What about his father? Now, again, if you're not a man, maybe you don't get it, but I don't know how many of y'all feel that there's so many examples where we'll talk about Black families and Black people, and we literally act like the women are having babies by themselves. Did anybody else never notice that? When they talk about the Black community, they always looking at the women and want to know what the women think and what happened with the women and telling the women's story, but nobody ever stops and says, oh, wait, where was his father? Like, what was going on with his dad? And I'm sensitive to that because I had a dad and I am a dad. And it's like, we're not invisible. We exist, and I'm not here to hurt anybody's feelings, because sometimes you have to see the value of a good father to really know the value of a good father and to know what you're missing when you don't have a good father. If you never had a father or never had a good father, you may not even know why fathers matter. I can tell you my experience. My father, his name was Boyce. He was not, I don't think he was a good dad. I talked to my so-called, I talked to my blood siblings that I didn't grow up with. They lived in the house with him. They didn't say good things about him, so if no one had stepped in to replace him, which my father did, my father that raised me stepped in and replaced this other person. If no one had replaced him, I'd probably be in the same category. I'd probably be like, well, fathers ain't that important. Who cares? I mean, kids are fine. They got a mama and that's it. But I really want us to stop for a moment and really remember consciousness. Consciousness is awareness, right? We talk about being conscious. Conscious means you have to stop and look at the things you take for granted, the things you've relegated to your subconscious, the things you don't think about. And you got to think about it. You got to kind of watch the clock for a minute and watch how the clock is moving. You got to stop for a moment, have that moment of alignment with what's going on around you. And I want you to really process how we really talk about the Black community as if fathers just don't matter and don't exist. How we literally we will talk all day about the strength of the single mother and what the kids had to overcome and everything else. And I become a little bit awkward. I end up offending people because I see things in a more practical way. I'm a mathematician. For me, in the mathematics world, 2 + 2 is always going to be 4, even if it hurts your feelings, right? They're like 2 + 2 is never going to be 188. Even if, no matter how many protests you have, 2 + 2 is still going to always be 4. It's just not going to change, even if you are offended by the fact that 2 + 2 = 4. Like you might say, no, that's not right. 2 + 2 should really equal 95. But that's just not going to ever occur. You can pretend like it. You can live in a fantasy world, but that's not reality. Why do I say it that way? Well, because a lot of times we get to the point where we want to believe that a child who has no presence of a father in his day-to-day life, I'm talking about a man in the house, waking you up, telling you to go to school, giving you daily advice on a regular basis. I'm talking about, I shout out to all the weekend dads, shout out to the fathers that are involved with their kids, shout out to people that are making it work, right? Non-custodial, I get all that. I understand. Relationships are complicated. Sometimes it ain't your fault. But that ain't the same. I'm sorry. I just have to tell you, on behalf of all those who had both parents in the house, it ain't the same. My father visiting me once a week wouldn't have been the same as having him up my ass every single day. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. I could have got away with a whole lot more if I only had to see my daddy once a month. I could have got away with a whole lot of shit that I was trying to do when I was 16. Right. So here's what I kind of want you to process for a moment. Right? And I want you to process it in a way where we don't spend our time getting offended because a Black man is saying these things to you. Can I say these things and still be loved? Can I say this? Give me a yes. I need us to be conscious, and give me a yes if it's okay if I say this. And even if it's not quite in alignment with what you believe, we can still hear each other. Give me a guess. I'm going to ask you a basic question. Why is it that people get offended if I say, a child is really damaged if their father's not in the house? But yet you understand completely if I say a child is really damaged if their mother's not in the house. Like, why is it so easy to understand that a missing mother will damage the child beyond repair? Kid grows up, goes to prison, becomes a serial killer, gets involved in all kinds of stuff, wants to sleep with hookers for the rest of his life. Like, really, like, think about this, right? If I say, well, little Pookie crazy, but he didn't have his mom, and people like, oh, well, then that'll mess her meal, man. That will mess up your head, dog. I'll shoot without your mama. You mind it, right? We get that. But if I say the same thing about the father, like, people will be like, oh, well, he didn't have a daddy, but he turned out just fine. So we think a child is perfectly fine without the father, but it would be a catastrophe to have the child without the mother. Or we understand if a child is screwed up because they didn't have a mom, but we think that not having a dad is not a big deal. I'm just going to challenge that a little bit. I'm going to challenge that by starting off by just telling you, again, this is my point of view. You don't have to agree. It's okay. This is a space of free thinking, we believe in freedom of speech. We don't do the Kyrie Irving routine out here. We don't tell you what to think. But I really want you to kind of think about this for a moment, because again, as a mathematician who grew up believing 2 + 2 = 4, I look at cause and effect. I look at something a lot of people don't really think about. I look at cause and effect. So I look at a community where your wealth is consistently doing a nosedive. Your wealth is going down. It's not going up. Slavery ended 150 years ago, but it's not like you're climbing out of slavery, right? I'm flying airplanes now, so I think in terms of climbs and dives now. I'm actually getting my pilot's license. It's so much fun. I'm actually going to do another training session today. And so your wealth is kind of doing a nosedive. Right? It's losing altitude, and then also you have children that are traumatized at every level. You have little girls and boys, who are being molested and ended up in the street and just ended up in tough situations. Mothers taking care of kids, God bless them, taking care of several kids by themselves. It's really, really hard. It's very traumatic. A lot of fathers going broke because they're trying to pay child support on 4 or 5 babies' mamas, which is really hard to do. Even if you're a millionaire, that's still hard to do because they just charge you more money. And then on top of that, it sucks because you pay all this money and then your kids don't even like you that much. Like, it's kind of chaotic. Would you agree with me that kind of the black family is like a little bit in disarray? Like, how many of y'all agree? I look at it, and you ever cringe when you hear about a situation like I heard a guy. There was a guy that it was actually a baby daddy to a young lady I used to mentor. And I said, how many kids does he have? And she said 27. She said he had 27 kids. And I said, wow, that's a lot of reproduction there. That would make a rabbit jealous. And then he gets killed. He's in the streets, he's thugging like the rappers want you to do. The culture, this is the culture they create for you. This is you have people that put billions of dollars into creating this culture. Well, these little black boys grow up wanting to be thugs. So like a lot of thugs, he ends up dead. And now you got, and in my mind, I'm visualizing 27 children going through life without the guidance of a father. Not like they had much of a father anyway. You had 1/27th of a father, but still, like that's something that I think as a community, we got to really talk about that. And we have to have our own conversation without it being distracted by whatever white liberals want you to believe about your situation, or whatever white conservatives want you to believe. I don't know. I'm not into that. I don't vote for liberals or conservatives. I just don't do it. I'm not going to. You can't talk me into that. You can do what you want, but you're not going to talk me into doing nothing I don't want to do. So anyway, as I move forward, do me a favor. Could you please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That's really important. If you already subscribed, make sure you hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I go live. So please make sure you do that. Also, I want to give a shout out to, we allow a few vendors to sponsor the platform. TheAmazingMagnet.myshopify.com. I'm going to read this. This is the patent. This sister actually invented, it looks like a cell phone that rings, like you wear it as a ring, but it's actually a phone. So it's like a ring phone kind of thing. And that's her website. And her patent number is 863-4886. And they want to attract major technology change such as Apple, AT&T, etc., for the sale of new upcoming patented technology, telecommunications product conception. So that's the URL. If you want to go take a look at theamazingmagnet.myshopify.com, feel free to go take a look. And also, if you want to sponsor a Dr. Boyce shout out to help us support the platform, but also will support your business, just go to drboycefinance.com. The URL is right there on the screen, drboycefinance.com. Okay, so because I'm a finance guy, and later on, by the way, I am going to come back and talk to you guys about the stock market and all that. I just wanted to talk about this because I think that you have to really, and I've explained this, but I want to make sure I keep on explaining this to you, that you can't talk about Black wealth without talking about Black family structure. Every study that I could ever show you on earth shows you that when people work together as a team, when you, AKA a family, you're going to typically have more wealth and more financial security than if you don't have a family. The best way to think about, one way to think about it would be, think about when you were little. Anybody ever grow up in a neighborhood where you knew that family, that where every kid, the kids in the family had like 8 brothers and sisters? You know, like maybe you grew up down the street from the Wayans family and there was like 10 of them. You know, did you ever think about what happens when one of those kids gets beat up? What happens if one of those kids goes to school and somebody tries to bully that kid? Like what's going to happen to one of the Wayans kids if somebody, you know, beats them up after school? You think it's just going to happen? It's not going to be a big deal? What do you think? No, the whoever decides to pick on a Wayans kid is going to get that ass beat for like the next 5 years. Like you're going to have people coming after you forever. So people will say, "Oh, I'm not messing with the Wayans kids. They got too many of them. There's too many of them." Right? So ultimately, family makes a difference. Family is like a gang affiliation. Gangs, collectives, groups, animals running gangs, animals running packs, right? So groups have strength. If you operate as a group, then you can accomplish things that you cannot do as an individual. So the way to disempower a group of people and to make them poor and to make them weak is to keep them divided. So they never operate as a group. And the way to gain strength is to operate as a collective. So your family is part of your first collective. Mother, father, bunch of siblings, everybody's on code. Nobody's getting bullied after school because if one of the kids gets bullied, all their siblings will be out there ready to tackle that ass, right? So ultimately, wealth kind of operates the same way. So when you have family structures and you get together, you make a baby, you know, 2, 3 kids or whatever, and then the father and the mother divide, and then the family's kind of divided, then you have vulnerabilities, you have loopholes. So for example, again, because I know that 2 + 2 is 4, and because my father also was a cop, he would tell me he worked in the crimes against children unit, which was so disturbing that he had to get therapy. Every cop I know who worked in the crimes against children unit, where they had to constantly see kids getting molested, kids getting abused, terrible things, you know, raped and murdered. I mean, just terrible things that would happen to these children. They had to go, the cops have to go get therapy. It's a God bless the officers that do that job because it's hard to do. Well, one thing that I saw, and every cop I've talked to confirmed this, that one of the number one reasons that a lot of young girls get molested in the Black community is because their mother has a boyfriend that is, you know, doing things with the kid that the mother doesn't know about. And so ultimately, and or may even be something not quite as dramatic. It might just be that man beating up your son because he doesn't like your son, because that's not his son. A man does not typically beat up his biological son, but studies actually show that there can be hostility formed between a man and his non-biological son. And even on the deep, if you really want to go deep with it, they actually say that non-biological son reminds him of the man that you used to sleep with. So there's like this competition, this animosity, this abuse that can come out of that. And this is true. Go watch the movie Baby Boy and you'll understand that. That was a really great example by John Singleton of what can happen when the son sort of forms this really awkward, unnatural bond with the mother, and then another masculine male comes into that territory. Next thing you know, this man is standing at the refrigerator butt naked drinking Kool-Aid. Y'all remember the movie, right? And the son is mad. The son don't like it because he's territorial, and the man's annoyed because the son is like, your son is 24 years old. He should be out of the house. So all these weird dynamics happen largely because from the beginning, we kind of aren't able to quite do it right. You know, we things happen, things go wrong. I'm not judging. I'm not telling anybody that you're wrong. I'm just saying that I'm going to lay out a fundamental premise that I'll believe till the day I die. And you don't have to agree with me, but I believe that children tend to be better protected when their biological father is around. when he's around every day and involved in their life. Now, why he's not there, you could talk about, you could debate that till the cows come home. But I think that is a premise that I hope that we can agree on. All right, so let me bring it back to Emmett Till. Okay, you guys know how I operate. I got to give you the whole breakdown. I can't just like sort of give you the quickie version. I got to really explain this to you so you understand where I'm coming from on this. So with Emmett Till's father, and this really pissed people off that I actually looked up his father, and I was literally on Instagram. And I said, he had a father, and people act like his father didn't exist. Let me tell you about Emmett Till's dad. Emmett Till's father's name was Lewis. Lewis was a man who married his mother when he was 18 years old, and then they gave birth to Emmett. Apparently, I guess he had a girlfriend or something, and the wife didn't like it. So there was a domestic violence incident, according to what I read. Maybe I think he choked her or something like that, and which obviously inappropriate, right? All guys listening, I don't think a man should ever put his hands on a woman for any reason. If she's getting on your nerves, you got to just learn how to walk away. And I know sometimes people will drive you crazy and make you mad, but I don't believe that a man should be putting his hands on a woman. But that's what happened. So he then goes to jail. He gets arrested, and when he gets arrested, the judge tells him you can either go to jail or you can go into the military. So he goes into the military. Well, while he's in the military, he was in, I believe, Italy, and he was accused with another black man of I believe, something pretty bad, like raping and murdering a lady in Italy. Now, the thing was, the trial didn't really wasn't a good trial. He didn't have any evidence presented to defend him. His lawyers were pretty crappy. And he even after he got locked up, he kept saying he didn't do it. He claimed that he was innocent. And so anyway, the government ended up putting him, sentencing him to death. So from what I understand, he was then eventually killed. Right. So what I thought about was, I said, so what the scenario was, and this is a scenario that does, kind of present itself in the movie, I imagine, is that you have this single mom who is doing the best she can. Right, dad's gone for whatever reason. You're sending the child down south. Maybe it's because he wants to be down south. Maybe it's because it's just a summer vacation, or it could also be because maybe she's working a lot and needs some help. Right, most single moms I know that have kids, they need help, they need support. So a lot of times when that second parent isn't there, it becomes a grandparent or becomes an auntie or a cousin. Right, other people step in, and they end up helping with the child. So Emmett goes down south. The situation happens with this white woman. An angry mob of white men get upset, and they eventually kill him. Now, what I laid out, and I wasn't necessarily saying I know exactly how this played out, and I'm not armchair quarterbacking any of this, but what I was kind of asking was, I said, I wonder what would have happened if things had worked out and his biological father was still around. I mean, his biological father was a strong man. He was a military man. I believe that children with their biological father around tend to be more protected. Maybe if his father was in the house, his mother wouldn't have had to send him down south, where, because the South was very dangerous at that time, right? So, a lot of people left the South to go north in order to be safe. So maybe that things would have been different, because I can tell you this. Here's what I'm gonna lay out something that probably sounds kind of old fashioned to you, because I think that we've gotten so used to thinking of the Black community as a community of broken families. But let me tell you a little bit about our household growing up. My father, who was a military man and a police officer, he was my father that raised me. He wasn't my biological father. My biological father, prison, drugs, all that crap. Didn't really get to know the guy. But the father that raised me, had guns. He was a very strong man. He did not allow us to really go hang out at other people's houses like that. He didn't allow us to go and be gone for the whole summer, because he was a cop. He knew about all the bad things that can happen when the father's not there to protect the child. If somebody had come in and tried to molest my sister, my father would have blown his brains out. My father would have protected us by any means necessary. Now, I had some people that said, I think they took offense to it, and I get it. And I don't want anybody to be offended, because there's a lot of single moms in our community, and you do your best, and I love you for it. I think it's amazing. My mother was a single mom until my father made the decision to marry her. So it's not really blaming anybody, but it's really kind of like asking, is there another possible narrative that we can think about when it comes to Black families, other than this narrative presented by, say, the Emmett Till movie, that this happened, you're a victim, there's nothing you can do about it. That when a group of white men decides to come and murder your children or rape your women, that's all that's going to happen until white people decide to stop doing terrible things to Black people. That narrative that offends me a little bit. That offends me. And I had some people that said that even if his father had been around, that wouldn't have stopped him from getting killed. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. But I do think this. I think that it's a little bit white supremacist of you to believe that whenever white men decide they're going to go and kill a Black man's child, that there ain't nothing Black men can do about it. And also it would be naive of you to believe that every Black person who got killed just sat there and said, well, you's white, son, so get to choking me, get to beating me, son. You ain't nothing I can do to fight back. See, people don't understand this. If you go back to Black Wall Street, and there's a brother named Cody who does a great tour of Black Wall Street. He runs the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge in Tulsa. He's actually joining us in the Black Business School because he told me stories about Black Wall Street that you never hear. And the story that he told was that the men in that community came back from the war. These men had guns. These men were killing the white men as they were coming to town to harm them. They weren't sitting around saying, oh, well, I hope that they don't come get us. The thing is, the white man is not the boogeyman. He's not some invincible monster that you can't stop. So this idea that Emmett Till having a father would have made no difference in him being killed is a white supremacist narrative, in the sense that I don't see white people ever feeling like they can't protect their children. I've never seen that. I really don't see it. I don't see Jewish or Asian people saying, well, you know what? If the government don't protect our children, then nobody will. Right? The government, we need the government. What are you talking about? Like, first of all, the government did kill Emmett's father, by the way. I mean, maybe he was guilty, but I don't know. He didn't even get a good trial, so you don't know that. Right? But this idea that you can't even protect your kids, that you are subject to a community that is 90 or 70 something percent or full of like these households where the kids don't even have a father in the house every day. I don't think it has to be that way. I just really don't. I get it. Things happen, but my Lord, are we giving up that easy? So here's the deal. One of the things that's happened with the Black community, in my opinion, and this does affect your wealth, this affects your many outcomes in your lives, is that they see your community as a broken, fatherless community. They view your Black men the way they view the rappers, because a lot of the Black men, unfortunately, don't get good mentorship or guidance on what manhood looks like. So they listen to rappers who talk about having, 8 babies, mamas, and killing people and staying high all day and drunk all day and throwing away their money. Any man who lives like that is going to be a complete loser. He's going to be a waste. He's going to be garbage. He's not ever going to be able to accomplish anything. He's not built for war. He's not built to defend or protect anything. He's not built for responsibility. None of that. And the thing about that, though, is that when you see these men that are created, you have to understand it takes a lot of work from a lot of parties to create a broken, weak-ass, pathetic-ass Black man. A lot of people have to participate in the process. Like it's like making a gourmet meal, except the gourmet meal tastes like shit. But it takes a lot of ingredients to do that. So first of all, you need white supremacy. You need a hip hop music industry controlled by a bunch of people who are not even Black, who are paying billions of dollars to mass promote messages of Black of complete broken Black masculinity, where the men are just literally ignorant and incapable of accomplishing anything. You really need that's one ingredient. The second ingredient is that you need some fathers who don't necessarily want to take accountability and don't have the courage to actually take responsibility for anything or anyone, and don't want to actually grow. And then you need some mothers who also are okay with that shit. You need some mothers who are strong Black women who don't need no man, or maybe treat their sons like their husbands, or maybe allow their sons to grow up without any accountability, and treat him like a baby at the age of 25, so that he ends up getting with another woman, and she did not get a grown-ass man handed to her. She got a baby handed to her. So some woman, you dump your little weak ass, unaccountable son who's completely irresponsible. You dumped him on another black woman who's going to sit around and have the same problems you have, because this culture is intergenerational. These cycles continue. These cycles continue until you become conscious and aware and realize that all of us are guilty in this game. Every single one of us. All of us play some part in the creation of the little disasters that we have walking around our community sometimes. So ultimately, what I really think is that maybe if you really start from just basic ideas like, I'm here, kind of going into Uncle Boyce mode, and I feel a little bit presumptuous by doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think that maybe there's some insights that might help somebody. So one thing I would say is this: if you're a woman and you are picking a man, you really have to think carefully about the kind of man that you pick. And then you also have to think carefully about the kind of woman that you are. Who taught you womanhood? Who taught you what a woman is supposed to do and how a woman is supposed to talk to a man, how a woman is supposed to conduct herself? And also, who taught you how to even pick a man? I'd see people picking men because they have money, or because he's got swag, or because his penis is big, or whatever it is. And literally, it's like insanity to me, because you really are punishing your children. Your womb is valuable. The keys to the universe lie within, between the legs of a black woman. Like you literally give us all life, and you should be honored for that. But, that power of God, if it's used irresponsibly, then you can create a disaster that ends up ruining the lives of so many other people, starting with your child. So you, by you choosing to simply lay down with a man because he can give you a good orgasm, you might want to rethink that. You just might want to rethink it. I'm not second guessing anybody's sexual choices. My Lord, I would hate to do that. But I really think you got to understand, when you're getting your cues on what's normal from a society that is broken, busted, disgusted, and producing a bunch of pathetic, crazy weirdos, you probably need to understand that you got to get off the grid if you want to have something different. Unless you want your life to be just like the people on Love and Hip Hop. So that's the first thing is I think that if a woman is picking a man, this is a little piece of real life advice, Uncle Boyce advice. Take it with a grain of salt, but I'm going to share this with you again because I'm a mathematician. I believe in cause and effect, and I believe the 2 + 2 is 4. If I were a young woman picking a man to even come anywhere near my bedroom, you know what I would look at? I would look at the man and ask myself, what man has he been getting his advice from up until this point? What man is the primary influencer of the man that I'm about to lay down with? What man? Because remember, this is the man that he's going to go back to get advice from when he's having relationship problems. And there's some men who say, oh man, dog, just go get it. Go do what you want to do. Get you a pack of hoes. Go live the Nick Cannon life, right? And then there's some men like my father, my brother and I are both married. And you know what happens when we get pissed off at our wives? You know what we do? We call our dad. And my dad's, who's been married to my mother for 48 years, will say, okay, I know you're upset, but here's what it is. You got to deal with that. You need to go back home. You need to work that out with your wife. Do you understand how important that is? I mean, are y'all getting what I'm saying? Do y'all understand what I'm saying here? Do you know the difference between a man getting advice from a man who's been married 48 years versus a man getting no advice at all? Or a man who's getting his cues of manhood from watching YouTube or videos or from the manosphere or from his favorite rapper? His favorite rapper ain't going to tell him to go work it out with his wife. His favorite rapper is going to tell him to go get a pack of hoes. That's what his favorite rapper is going to tell him to do. His favorite rapper ain't going to tell him to pick up a book and go see a therapist and try to grow and evolve. His favorite rapper is going to tell him to thug it out, get your strap, get your hoes, get your weed, get your liquor bottle, and live your best life. So unfortunately, and here's the thing, right? If you're in that category, like if you're a man that isn't getting good advice from another man who has created the life that you want to have, then find that man. Like you got to find somebody. Life is hard. It's complex. And when people go through life just simply doing whatever feels right at the moment, then you're going to make a lot of mistakes because life is going to, The world will convince you to just simply be a pleasure seeker your whole entire life. Just spend your life seeking orgasms and avoiding any complex, difficult situations. Avoid all accountability by any means necessary. If you make babies, then let the woman just take care of it and you'll be fine or whatever. And the problem is that, number one, it ends up harming the community, but then you have to care about the community to even care about what I said. And number two, those chickens do come home to roost. Those chickens come home to roost. I mean, a lot of senior citizen centers are filled with old men who were players in the 1970s and 1980s who didn't invest in any other people. So therefore, they grow old and they die alone. They have nobody that loves them enough to even come see you because you didn't invest in people. You just were investing in pleasure or whatever, or avoiding accountability at all costs. So you never built anything. That's the point. You never built anything. And in many cases, that lack of building isn't just in terms of family. It also will come in terms of wealth. That same guy who doesn't have any family also might be the guy who has no insurance. He also might be the guy who has no inheritance. He has nothing to leave anybody. So when he dies, people have to have a GoFundMe to bury him. And it doesn't even matter because very few people show up at the funeral, except maybe a bunch of babies' mamas who, might fight a little bit or whatever. But for the most part, there's nothing there. There's no legacy there. You're a man. You didn't really build any kind of kingdom to honor you. So therefore, the question becomes, what contribution or lack thereof did you even make to the space that you care about? All right. So, but the thing is, though, I think it's really important when we're talking about rebuilding the families to kind of really talk about women too. I don't like it when you talk about these issues and you only talk about one gender. That was my only bone to pick when Kevin Samuels was here. RIP to Kevin Samuels. I didn't dislike what he said. I thought he actually made a good point in a lot of cases, but there were some times where I'd be like, why are we only talking about women? Why is every thumbnail a picture of a woman? What about what we're doing? Like, you really think that what's wrong with our community is that women won't adjust to us? But I also think on the flip side, you see a lot of women who unfortunately were, I think for men, the same thing could be true, right? If you're trying to build something with a woman, you have to think about what you're building and whether or not she's even capable of building the vision that you have. If her whole life she never even saw what a family looks like, where the mother and the father are compromising and working together and giving in to each other and submitting to each other, I don't really know if it's going to actually work to try to build something with a person like that. Because what's going to happen is as soon as somebody gets mad and they're not getting their way, they're going to burn the whole building down. They're just going to throw it all away. So I can say that one privilege I had was when I grew up and I saw my parents constantly submitting to each other. I would see my mother mad about something and saying, no, this ain't right, blah, blah, blah. And my father would be like, well, I ain't doing it. And then my mother would be like, well, okay. And the same thing would happen on the other side. My father would be like, oh, hell no. And my mother would be like, oh, you better do that. And my dad would be like, okay, all right, well, your mama said we got to do it, so we got to do it. You don't have a world like that, right? So building things like family and all that, it's worth it if you love your kids, right? It's worth it if you love your kids because kids are better protected in families. They're better protected when they have the father in the home, because fathers, we have the big muscles and we carry the guns and we have the testosterone, which is designed to protect the child. Nobody was going to come in my mother's house or in my father's house and molest my sister. They would have died. They would have been killed for that. Same thing. I was protected, right? So a lot of times our kids are not protected because there's no male around to look out for them. Or a lot of little girls grow up never knowing a man who really wants to make sure you're good, who isn't also trying to get something from you, right? Who isn't trying to sleep with you or whatever, right? So that type of love, I think, is something that our kids deserve. And if you agree with that, right? So some people don't get it. Some people think that this is crazy, weird, judgmental stuff or whatever. But those who get it, you got to plan for that. And not only do you have to plan for that, you meaning when you have kids and all that, you got to plan for that, but you got to make sure you're planning with somebody who also is planning for that. And then also, in addition to that, it's hard, right? This is really hard. You not only do you have to plan for it with somebody who has the same plan, but you got to make sure that they even know how to make the plan. So think about it like building a house. I want to build a house, and I want to find somebody else that's going to help me build a house. Like your marriage, your family is your institution. That's your house. And I go to my homeboy and I say, or let's to make it make sense, let's pretend like my home it's a home girl, right? Because anyway. So I say, hey, let's build a house together. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, if we build a great house, then we can be warm and we can have a place to live, we can have property. And she's like, yeah. So then I'm like, okay, all right, so I'm gonna bring some money. I read all the manuals on how to build a house. My parents have shown me home building my whole entire life, so I'm ready with the blueprint. And then let's say she says, well, I don't got no money. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe you can help us figure out what materials we need. And she's like, well, I don't know what materials you need for a house. And then let's say that I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'll take the lead, and you just do what I ask you to do, and we'll build this house together. And then, let's say she's like, no, I want to have 50-50 say in how this house gets built. And then you're like, but you don't know how to build a house. Nobody taught you how to build a house, and you ain't bringing no money to the table. And so I don't care. I don't care. With the way we're going to build it, we're going to build the house with mud. We're going to use mud and crayons to build a house. And they're like, but you can't build a house with mud and crayons. I've been studying home building my whole life. That don't work. Well, no, we need mud and crayons, right? So my point is, here's what I'm saying. You can't build a solid family structure with somebody who is either ignorant on what a family even looks like, or maybe they have a fairy tale fantasy of what a family looks like. See, so sometimes if you grow, honestly, I think, if you're a man and all you've heard about women is what your father told you, but you never actually talked to a woman or never had a woman actually in the house with you, you would probably get a false perception of what a woman is, right? Like, you ever see those guys that maybe they see women in magazines and they think every woman's supposed to weigh like 110 pounds or whatever, like they have a false illusion of what a woman is. Well, the same thing happens with women. Some women who didn't grow up watching the ugliness that can occur in a real marriage, they have a fantasy. Their mother tells them, well, if a man loves you, he won't do this. And if a man is the right man, he'll do this and he'll do that. And he won't do this and won't do that. So they'll carry that. And so they have this list of 30 things. I knew somebody like that. She had a list of 28 items that she said that a man needed to have for her to want to be married to him. So she's now in her 50s, never found the right guy, has dated about 80 men. None of them fit her list of 28 things. And I kind of said, I think you're looking for a man that isn't real. I know a lot of men. I've been around men my whole life. I've been one my whole life. And I don't know if I could actually meet everything on that list. That's a really long list. Like, who gave you that list, right? It's a fantasy list. It's a bullshit fantasy list that she got from magazines and other women or TV shows, but it's not based on a real life relationship with a man, because no man has ever been able to meet all those crazy standards, right? So ultimately, a lot of times you're trying to build this house. So let's go back to the analogy. So you're building this structure, this family, this house, and you're trying to build it with somebody who has no resources, to give. Some people can't give you anything emotionally. Maybe they're too stubborn, doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to take guidance from you, has no experience building a house. What the hell kind of house do you think you're going to get? What kind of house do you think? Do you think the house is even going to get completed? And if it does get completed, is that going to be a nice house? No. It's not. It's going to be a gingerbread house. It's not going to be real, right? And it's probably not going to be a sturdy house. So a lot of the things so here's my formal specific advice. Now, some of y'all wonder, like, sometimes, you guys know I'm a wealth guy, but I got to talk about family if you're going to talk about wealth, because they're directly connected. And those who keep their families together tend to be wealthier. But also, what is hard about it is that there's a lot of pre-planning in terms of picking the right person and making sure that they get the right training, and also that they're willing to learn the things that they need to learn to fill in the void. So let's say that you are a person who never saw what a family looks like, or you're a man who never saw what a man does. Well, you got to say, well, where am I going to learn these things? And you got to be open enough to learn. You got to be humble enough to say, I don't know everything I need to know. I'm going to go find some men that I trust who are living the life that I want to live. Like, so if I get married and my goal is to be married 40 years, I go find a man who's been married 30 years, 40 years, And that becomes one of my advisors. Like, okay, my wife is doing this. This is getting on my nerves. How do I deal with that in a way that's going to help me achieve this goal? The same thing is true with women. Women have to take counsel. Your single girlfriends are not good for you, because they're gonna help you avoid accountability. They're just gonna tell you that everything that he did was wrong and everything you did was right, and that it ain't your fault, and that you're a wonderful person, you're perfect just the way you are. They're gonna tell you all that crap that's gonna like probably keep you like unhappy for the rest of your life. I'm sorry, that's just what I've seen, right? I think that talking to somebody who has achieved what you want to achieve is a better way to get the advisement that you need. It's like if I want to start a multi-million-dollar business, I do not go talk to my friends who are broke. If I want to start a great company, I don't talk to people who haven't built anything or who have destroyed things in their life. So my first thought is, if you are my teacher on anything, I need to look at what you've actually done, and if it actually gave you the outcomes that I want from my own life. And then going back to that last point, this is so critical. I'm just thinking about this because this is all investing, by the way. This is all, I can link all this back to investing in financial theory. I promise you. It's because the biggest investments you'll ever make in your life are actually your time, your energy, your love, your peace of mind. Like, all these things are massive investments that you make in other people. And I see a lot of people making those investments in people because she has a big booty, or making that investment in a man because he's tall and handsome and fits some sort of image that you got out of a magazine of what kind of man you wanted, instead of really thinking about 5 steps down the road to say, okay, if my child is sick, is this the kind of man that's going to make sure my child gets what they need when they're sick? If we get a divorce, is this the kind of man who's going to insist on having a role in the life of his children no matter what? If we run into a problem as a family, is this the kind of man that's going to go bust his ass to make sure that the family's taken care of? And it's not, and the thing is, you can't even ask the person directly. Like, you can't say, so if this happens, what are you going to do? You could try that, but I've learned that you don't listen to what people say. You got to look at what they do, and you also have to look at what they learned, what they saw. Right. So if you never saw examples, like if you are if you're talking about some guy who just kind of thinks that men should just do whatever they want, and they never saw a man really committed to anything relationship wise for a long period of time, I don't know how you can think that man is ever really going to be committed to you. I just don't, and I think the same thing might be true. The same thing is obviously true on the other side too. If I'm trying to build something sturdy and solid, I would rather build that with a sturdy, solid woman who really is willing to do the work to actually do that. It's like if I want to run a marathon, like I run marathons with my wife, and the reason that I lost weight and finished the marathon is because my wife is a person who doesn't stop running. Now, if my wife was obese and didn't want to exercise, that would not be a good person for me to try to run a marathon with, because the minute I get tired, she's going to get tired too, and then we're both just going to give up. So get with people that want to run marathons. If that's what you want to do, emotional marathons. Like, if you are in it for the long haul and you really want to build a solid family and you want your children to benefit from that and to be protected, just know that there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that. It ain't for the faint of heart. It's really hard to do, and it takes a lot of work, and you have to be committed yourself, but you also have to commit to someone who is also going to be committed, or you end up just doing it all by yourself. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. And I want to make sure that, just going back to Emmett Till, that my statement about the father is not something meant to be disrespectful of anybody. It's really to say that I think that if you're talking about the future of this community, we must include the men. So in politics, I know that the politicians, the Democrats, think that they can just get all the black women to go, do, wear chucks for Kamala and do all these other things that they do to support their politicians. But the men must be included in the narrative. You cannot act like the black man is not here, that he's not real, that he doesn't exist. We are here, we are present, we are powerful. But I also encourage men to use that power respectfully, use that power in a way that is giving, use that power in a way that is selfless, use that power in a way that's going to benefit someone other than yourself and other than your ego. Because a lot of this culture, this false culture they create, the rap culture that somebody else created that's getting all these guys killed, all that does is pour into ego. And that is a horrible way to be a leader. I would never trust a leader who leads with his ego. So stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about something bigger than yourself. If you do that, then you can become an asset to the community and not a liability. That's my 2 cents. That's what I believe, and I'm standing by it. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. It was great talking to you. Hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, subscribe, share, all that stuff along the way. Also, we're doing some interesting things with stock options and stuff like that in the Black Business School. So if you would like to join us in any of that, just go to boycewatkins.com, or if you're on Instagram, you can hit the link in the bio. I'll come back in a little bit later and talk to you guys about what I'm seeing in the stock market. It's really an interesting time right now. And but for now, we're going to bounce on out. So have a good day. Love you. I'll see you soon. Peace.
Here we are, clearing the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV.